Okay, end of June 1995. I've just been through my first year as a teacher in secondary school. A nightmare. In terms of classroom management, many of my colleagues had already left the profession, but I had this intuition that my improv training had helped me keep my head above water. So this intuition was so strong that I've decided to undertake graduate studies on this team. And I was so lucky to have the possibility to do a master's degree and a PhD on my two passions, teaching and chemistry. Thank you. By the way, my name is Jean-Pierre Pelletier, and I'm a professor in educational science at TELUC University at Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Oui. And I'm sorry for this, but my first language is French, and it's my first conference in English. Sorry. Okay, what am I doing here? Okay, I'm looking forward to present you some results of my recent research, of course. And I think that it's very important for scientific and practitioners to work together, to validate each other, even if we're not down the same road. But it's really important to share the results with you and your results with me. That's thing. It's going to make it stronger, I think. And I would like to change. I would like to change the teacher training with adding improv. I'm already doing it, but I want it to be more widely spread. Yeah, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the future of education. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development wrote in a 2018 report that adaptability was the skill of the future. I think that even after the pandemic, it's still the same. Do you agree? Yeah. So it starts with teachers. It starts with teachers that have to have a mindset of improvisation. Improvisation mode and improvisation mood. The students will follow, will see how to manage unexpected events, and eventually they will adjust to this society and change. But we have to begin to train the teachers to do that before the internships, at the very beginning of their training. That's really important, because when you have strategies and when you have knowledge, when it's not working, no knowledge is working in a situation, no strategies is working, what's left? Interactive skills, the skills. So let's train the teachers. Okay, I'm going to give you some research results, okay? It's development research. So don't be surprised, it's not like any other scientific presentation. So I'm going to give you the 3 key research milestones. So what I did is I created an interactive skills referential. I had to do that because if I don't do that in my field of work, I get killed. So we digged into scientific data of classroom management, and then we compared it to many exercises of improv coming from improvisational theater, and then we merged both of them. And what was common is there. So we have hyperperception, which is a combination of listening, peripheral vision, and observation. Fast action, it's the combination of rhythm, pace, and the ability to turn unexpected events into potentiality. Efficient communication, it's the combination of verbal and nonverbal communication. And the glue to make the triangle very strong is the overlapping of each skill, but the overlapping between the skills. That's very important. And inside, we have the application zone. Well, sorry. The application zone is somehow very difficult because you're never there when you're in class. It means that the course of action is exactly the same as the plan. Never happens in class, never. So we have to be in the adaptation zone or the improv zone. And what's the difference between adaptation and improv? It's the creativity you need if you're having really strong, unexpected events. Okay? So that's the improv training that brings this capacity. You don't want to be in the precarity zone. In improv theater, you have support. If you're in trouble, someone will help you. Right? In a class with 35 teenagers with hormones, maybe not. Did I say maybe not? Not. They're not gonna help you. So you need this to survive in class. I lost so many friends who were trying to do this job. Okay. So the interactive skill referential. Now, second milestone, the Applied Improv Lab. What we did is we have 1 hour of practical exercises and 1 hour of reflective activity. The 3 exercises we used is the imaginary object, which is a warm-up. We used the collective story, which is a version of yes and we used the goalkeeper, where the goalie receives a lot of proposition and he has to answer very quickly. And we use them in the order, okay? And the other side is the reflective activity. Well, I heard you this week says that it was debrief. Yeah, and it's a well-structured debrief where we analyze the difficulties encountered, the strategies deployed, the skill that were used, and the possible transfer of these skills into the classroom. So next one is the implementation. So we did, permit me some water, please. You can sing. Woo, thank you. Okay. So we did experiment the lab with the framework, with the referential that I talked before. And I'm going to give you some results, but I'm going to give you that with forms of question, like a quiz. Do you like quiz? Okay. Do you say quizzes? Quizzes. Oh, okay, I prefer that. Okay. So, 3 questions, okay? In my research, so what is the most important thing to do as a facilitator? Here are your answers. Create a safe zone. Thank you. Okay, second one. What skill is the most developed in the lab that we did on our research, okay? So, I repeat them. We have hyperperception, fast action, communication, and overlapping Tell me your answer. Congratulations. It's the hyperperception. Did someone say hyperperception? No. Okay. Well, I wasn't surprised by this result. It's okay. So, and the third one is what exercise is the best to train these skills? Okay, I remember you. There was the imaginary object, the warm-up. There was the collective story, yes and kind. And there was the goaler, goalkeeper. Which one? The imaginary object, the warm-up. The warm-up. What? Repeat after me. The warm-up. Is that possible? The warm-up. It was not even supposed to be an exercise. Okay, so I had to dig into the 1,000 pages I had, because we did interviews with all the teachers that did the lab, and we found something very interesting. Why is that? Okay. Why is that? It's because the teachers felt exactly the same thing during the warm-up exercise as they feel in class. This is the cognitive overload. And there's a way. So if we train, we manage to deal with the unexpected, we deal with the cognitive overload, and well, there's a way to go through that. So that's the good news. Okay, what's next? Past a couple of slides. Okay, so scientists. Okay, I'm gonna talk to you now with my sheet. So scientists and practitioners must convince authorities to modernize teacher training, adding improv, so we can keep the best talent capable of accompanying our children and our grandchildren in this rapidly changing world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you so much, Jean-Pierre. And I won't delay it any longer. And I will invite on the stage, Gabe Mercado.
Thank you very much. My first Applied Improv conference was 14 years ago in Amsterdam. So can I see a raise of hands? How many people were there 14 years ago? Wow. These are the veterans in the room. A round of applause for all of you. And this is my 8th conference. And this will be my 4th one running the open space tomorrow. So I am front-loading that. So if you have any anxiety or questions about open space, you can come to me during the breaks. But let me just preface it by saying that open space is an opportunity, a last-minute opportunity for us to have the conversations that are the most important for us to have to call this conference a success. And here's the good thing about open space. We can do it tomorrow, but we can also do it during the breaks. And it all comes from the insight that often the most important conversations that happen in a conference are the ones that you have during your break. So that's the kind of mentality that we have coming into open space tomorrow. And that was my way to prime you for that tomorrow. And now I'm going to my talk. So 14 years ago was my very first Applied Improv conference. So I've been doing Applied Improv since then, but I've also been doing performance improv for 21 years with my group Spit, and we basically popularized performance improvisation in the Philippines. Now, fast forward to 2019, I got a message. And the message was from my friend and said, you know, you're a pretty creative guy. You do applied improv. And you love working with kids, right? And fortunately, I do. But that wasn't so clear to me back then. And she said, perfect. I'd love you to meet this guy who has a creativity accelerator and a makerspace free for kids to attend. And I said, okay, I'd like to meet him. And I'd like to put this makers, and tell him I'm interested if we put it up in this new city that I had moved to called Baguio City. I used to live in Manila, one of the most densely populated cities in the whole world, and I decided to move up to Baguio. And I said, okay, tell him I'll meet him there. That's where I'd like to put it up. And so a few days later, this mysterious man decided to meet me up in Baguio. He was a Japanese man. And he sold me on the idea that if we want the next generation of innovators, change makers, people who can really create something, we can't teach them at the college level or the high school level. We have to start showing them that they can change the world at the age of 8. And we can do it through a maker space and a startup incubator, but we're not going to do it with adults anymore. We're going to do it with kids. And I said, that sounds like a great idea. I'd like to do it. And he said, okay, you're the founder. You have 4 years, and here's a boatload of money. And so, I did it. I set up a space called Vivi Stop Baguio. Vivi Stop Baguio is, at that time, it was only about the 7th in the world. And what is it? It's a place where kids can come in for free, where we have no curriculum, no subjects. We're the anti-school. We're the anti-school, but instead, they do self-directed learning, and we function like a library. In a library, no librarian will come to you and say, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. Instead, you go there and you tell the librarian, I'd like to learn about something, I'd like to do something, and the librarian will give you access to the right books and right resources. While we do have some books, instead of books, what we have are woodworking equipment, electronics kits, robotics kits, all arts and crafts materials. And when kids come in, we say, go ahead. We'll let you use these things, but we won't teach you. In fact, we're more interested in learning from you than teaching you anything. We're committed to be learners and not teachers here. And so, that's how it started. And this is how our place looks like. We have a kitchen where they can come in and experiment with food. And we found out that there's a really restrictive culture around food in many cultures around the world where we're so conscious of waste. We're so conscious of you must eat everything that you made. And there's not much room for experimentation for a child to do that. Of course, we don't encourage waste. But we say, hey, how else can you learn active experimentation if not for delightful things you can eat and put in your mouth? And we found that that was a great entry point to get them into 3D printing, laser cutting, all of that. I recruited my friend Candy, who's a social entrepreneur, and she works with women in a far-flung province called Ifugao, and she runs a social enterprise where they knit toys so that the village women do not abandon farming, and they get to sustain their income. And she was my creative director. And we did programs, and we eventually went beyond our little shop in Baguio and started going to public libraries all over the country. And we would have sessions where kids could come and knit and do robotics and do plushies and all of that in that atmosphere of abundance and freedom. And we thought that this was important. because schools, we saw, just aren't the place to have these things taught. In the Philippines, all art subjects were cut out. All creative subjects were completely cut out. And the system itself was no longer the perfect system to have it. So we were pushing this as an out-of-school way to do it. And funnily enough, the big subject in the Philippines in education the past few years has been our rankings in the PISA rankings. So if anyone is in basic education, you would know that this is how they rate education competencies in basic education. And often it is Singapore at the very top, number 1. Even in creative thinking, number 1. And they usually do 80 countries. Can you guess the ranking of the Philippines? 79. We used to be 80, but now we're 79. And the lowest ranking was in creative thinking. And that was a particularly painful thing for us, because if you're friends with any Filipino, you would think that, hey, they're pretty creative, you know. They do all the presentations and all the song and dance numbers in company parties. Why are they the lowest? But it's because we aren't allowed to think creatively in a productive environment, in an encouraging environment. So we decided that this is the way we would like to intervene. This is a group of public school teachers who had never seen a 3D printer before. And this was a hands-on experience of go ahead, go make something, go design something, and learn to be more proficient with these digital tools. I'd like to show you a program that we did where we worked with kids, and we did a 2-week program where we had an incubation weekend where they learned ideation, logo making, designing for the user, and then they prototyped their own products. And then 2 weeks later, they had a bazaar where they sold 20, 30 pieces of their product. Welcome to the Mandeco Kiddo Incubation Weekend.
So Mandeco Kiddo is our first idea to market workshop for kids, incubating kids' ideas for 1 weekend and bringing it to a fair, a kids' fair, 2 weeks later.
I developed my style from like a few other styles that I have.
Activities that we did earlier are like the best things that we did.
I enjoyed playing with my tripod.
I enjoyed the making of these and the planning out.
Talking actually with the kids, knowing their thoughts on things, trying to give them some ideas on how they could make use of the facilities to improve their product.
They should try it too, so that they can experience it as well.
I'm looking forward to making more products when there's like another Mandeco Kiddo event. Maybe it's gonna be something different, a different concept, or maybe just, you can do the same.
So you had everything from shirts. Thank you. So we've run 8 different cohorts for this already. And they made everything from shirts to plushies to polymer clay creations. But what was important was that you went from just having an idea to actually selling products at scale 2 weeks later. And that was exhilarating for me, and that was different because at that time, I thought that I was pretty good with applied improv, where we come up with great ideas that we can share and open up. But actually making them into real products, that was a thrill that spoke to me about how applied our thinking can be. And one of the exercises that I did with them, which you might find familiar, was come up with the dumbest idea first. Think of a product that you would like to sell to your grandmother and think of the dumbest possible. And they would make it a contest. And we found out that some of those ideas were actually quite good, and the grandma would buy them. I met these two about 2 months ago. This is Ronnie and Justin. And they are two of the visually impaired and blind youth from our region. And they came to us and asked us, hey, is there anything that blind people can do in a makerspace? And our initial reaction was, that's dangerous. We've got all these dangerous equipment, and we've got all these hazardous things that we have to put even stickers on them to warn people not to play with them. And we thought it was impossible, but of course, as improvisers, we say, yes, and. And so we started with getting to know what it's like to be blind and visually impaired. So even the kids did it, and this is a simulation of what it's like to have diabetic retinopathy. And the kids embraced that. And the kids also talked to people in the blind community on what it was like to live that way. And we said, if we ran a program where we thought of different ways to have innovations for the blind and sighted community, we were like, nah, that will actually make them feel more othered, more different. And kids won't exactly relate to it. So instead we said, why don't we come up with a program where blind and sighted youth can find ways to play together, not separately, but together. And this was the innovation program that we actually did. And in the cohort doing that, we had both blind and sighted working together in different teams.
Siguro realization, hindi lahat ng mga nakakasalamuhan natin is magiging ka-level natin. Kailangan may mga part na may mag-a-adjust tayo. Guys, my name is Ronerick Abon. I'm from La Union. And I'm with Heraya Collective for the Blind. We are given the chance to interact with sighted people. Nakakapag-explore pa po kami ng mga bagay na dati medyo kinakabahan kaming gawin. Actually, hindi po ako ma-arts na tao. Especially sa ibang visually impaired din is imagination lang yung pinapagana. But because of this program, yung imagination namin nagiging totoo. Yung dating idea lang na nai-imagine namin, nagkakaroon na siya ng physical appearance, kumbaga ganun.
When I started this work, thank you. When I started this work, I'll let you in on a secret. I did not use improv for the first 3 years. And it was a way, I know it affected my personality in the way I did things, but explicitly I didn't use it because at the back of my mind I was thinking, oh, improv is good for thinking abstract things and big things, but when it comes to making things, it's not very good. When it comes to making physical things, it's not very good. So funnily enough, even if I had done applied improvisation all these years since 2010, as a client for myself, I wasn't using it. But it changed a month ago when we actually did the lead up to this Vista program, where we did a variation of Whiskey Mixer, but we converted it into Filipino, and it's called Charito Solis, Charo Santos, Chanda Romero, and Chucky Dreyfus. but same mechanics. But when you say Chucky Dreyfus, you all get up in a circle. Well, you're standing in a circle, and you run with wild abandon to change places with people. And we did that with the blind youth. And my instruction for everyone was just take care of each other. Make sure everyone is safe. And naturally, and with a bit of help, people guided, even the blind ones. And they felt that they were in such a safe space that they were the most reckless runners in the entire group. And I also got them to do a little bit of the failure bow that some of us are familiar with. And they had the most gracious and throwing themselves on the floor action in failure bow. And that made me realize that applied improv, when it creates that safe space for us to take care of each other, for us to allow each other to throw ourselves with wide abandon to an idea and be sure that somebody can catch us, that's when innovation can happen. And that's when making wonderful things can happen. Thank you. One more thing I'd like to share. I said that I did turn my back to performance improv and applied improv for a while. There was a group I founded called Spit, and it's in the next one. And here's a funny thing. They're doing a fundraising show for me in my organization in Baguio next month. Tickets went live about 12 hours ago, and 400 tickets were sold out an hour ago. And that's a good segue also, because one of our beloved members of Spit, A.E. Mendoza, she was a part of the board until very recently. Unfortunately, she passed away due to cancer about 2 months ago. She's right at the top of the picture over there. She was part of our AIN family, our Spit family, but also with the AIN board until recently. I also mentioned that 2010 was my first Applied Improv conference, where I met Pablo Suarez, who is a dear, dear friend of the community, doing work with the Climate Center, Red Cross Climate Center. And also, this time last year, almost to the week, I had a nice catch-up lunch with another AIN member. Some of you know her well. Her name is Kay Ross, whom we lost this week last year. And I think that puts me in a unique position to dedicate this time for us to remember them fondly, remember their contributions to this community, and give thanks quietly for all that they have given us in the AIN. So let's applaud for Kay, let's applaud for AE, and let's applaud for Pablo as we watch this. Once again, thank you, Pablo. Thank you, Kay. And thank you, AIN.